Hello YouTube, my name's Nero and today we have some Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and today's the day, December 11th of 2014, which means if you are a Season Pass holder for Call of Duty Advanced Warfare on the Xbox, you now have access to the AE4, the brand new assault rifle here in Advanced Warfare. It's pretty unique in the fact that it's a laser rifle, but it's not like the other laser weapons. You think of all the other laser weapons, they're basically heavy weapons, right? They're kind of like the LMGs of the game, whereas this is in the assault rifle category. Of all the assault rifles and all the submachine guns in this game, this is the only one to have a laser mechanic, and it has a bunch of other like really weird quirks and mechanics to it, which we'll be covering that later on here in the video. Before we get into that, I just kind of want to say I think it's awesome that Sledgehammer is releasing a DLC gun so early. I think that's pretty great. I think a lot of people just like having DLC guns. Whenever a new weapon has come via DLC into the Call of Duty franchise, it's always been met with a lot of praise. You think of the Peacekeeper from Black Ops 2 and the Maverick and the Ripper from Call of Duty Ghost. People always love that stuff, man. We want new guns. They're awesome. Give us more. We'll pay money. We'll pay big money. Just give us more guns. We like that kind of stuff. But now that's out of the way, let's go ahead and start talking about the AE4. Let's start getting into the nitty gritty. First thing you guys probably want to know about the weapon. Is it good? Well, to that I would say average to below average. To be perfectly honest, with my limited experience, now keep in mind it's limited. It's limited experience, but yet at the same time, it's kind of not so limited experience. I have used the gun quite a bit, and in the experience I have with the weapon so far, it's a pretty subpar weapon, all things considered. Now, why is that? Let's start talking about the mechanics of the gun. So you may be noticing throughout the gameplay that the gun fires in a very weird way. We're gonna go to the firing range right here and just start shooting at stuff, and I can actually show you guys what I mean. So instead of being like a fully auto weapon, kind of like the EM1, or even a semi-automatic like the other one, which I can't remember the name of because, good God, that gun is just weird and awful and I don't like using it. Unlike the other laser weapons, it kind of fires somewhere in between. If I had to compare this gun to any other gun in the Call of Duty franchise, I would say it feels like a fully automatic marksman rifle with a very weird fire rate. So basically, instead of going like a full auto or boom, 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 boom like a semi-automatic, it's basically boom, 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 like that. Like, it's weird, right? The way it shoots is very weird, and because of that, you're kind of limited in as to what you can do with the gun. And in terms of close quarters engagements, that fire rate, the weird firing mechanic that this gun has, really kind of limits you against things like the Ball 27 or even other fully automatic rifles like the AK-12 and the HBR. You're really limited against those things, as well as submachine guns just dominate you close range. It is not a very good close range weapon. The other downside is the fact that it's also not very good at long range. You basically have to play at a medium range with this weapon for it to be most effective, and even then, the weirdest mechanic of all is it's a fully automatic weapon that you basically have to shoot as if it were a burst weapon, because you will in fact actually overheat your gun very, very, very quickly. Now, you could get the heat sink, unlock that attachment, which will make it so you can fire full auto for longer without it overheating. That could happen, but as of right now, without that attachment, you basically are screwed if you try and go full auto and you're trying to take on more than one person. You basically need to shoot the weapon as if it were a burst, hold down the trigger for a little bit, let go, hold down the trigger for a little bit, let go, make it so the gun doesn't overheat. It's very weird in that respect. In terms of the iron sights, I gotta say, man, the iron sights on this gun are probably some of the worst I've seen since the MP44 of Call of Duty 4. If you guys played that, you played around with the MP44, then you know what I'm talking about, and this weapon is about on the same level as the MP44 in terms of its difficulty to use with the iron sights. It was quite a grind, to be perfectly honest, to go up and get the red dot sight for this weapon, just because it was very hard to take people out any kind of range, because the iron sights are just the most counterintuitive iron sights I've ever seen. But once you get the red dot sight, it actually completely alleviates that, and you're good to go in terms of your optical sights. You're fine. If you get any of the optical sights, you are fine. It's just the iron sights, at least for me anyway, and to my friends that were using the gun earlier this morning, it was not a good experience. It was actually very difficult to use the weapon and we were using its iron sights, so that was pretty tough. But like I said, in terms of the damage, in terms of its weird firing mechanic, it's only really semi-viable at like a medium range. Now, how I kind of like the rate, I came up with a scenario in my head, so try and follow me with this. How I kind of rate whether or not this is a good gun is I want to put a scenario in all of your heads. So picture this. There is a free-for-all tournament in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. It is going to be a 10-man free-for-all, you versus 9 other people, and it's every man for himself, winner takes all, $100,000. Now, in this free-for-all, there's one rule. You can only bring one weapon with you into the free-for-all. What weapon do you choose? Now, of course, I think the obvious selection would be the Ball 27. I think even after the update, the Ball 27 is still the best weapon here in Advanced Warfare. But if you were to pick that, what would you pick besides Ball 27? Would you pick the AK-12? Would you pick the HBR-A3? Those are some very popular weapons. Would you pick the IMR? Would you pick the KF5 or possibly the ASM-1? Would you pick any of these guns? Because I know I would. And I would also pick any of the guns I've already listed ahead of this gun. I would pick them all ahead of the AE4. Now, because of that, I figure that gun itself is not very good. If there's that many weapons within the game that I consider to be a lot better than that gun, it's probably not that great of a gun, to be perfectly honest. It's a very average gun overall, which to some people, that's probably going to make people happy, because some people, though they are few in number, there are some people out there that really don't like the idea of DLC weapons, because at some point you may enter the pay-to-win category. You may be entering that kind of water, right, where the gun is very, very good and very powerful, and you have to pay money to be able to get it. That's kind of like a pay-to-win kind of system here within Call of Duty, and I don't think anyone really kind of likes that. It's also kind of funny that the people that say that are also the same people that are probably running around with scuffed controllers, but that's a discussion for another time. I think it's kind of good that it's not ridiculously overpowered, but what I really wanted to see out of the AE4 was to make it a viable weapon, a weapon that I could use consistently and consistently do well with, but by no means just dominate people all the time just because I'm using a very powerful weapon or anything like that. That's what I really hope that this weapon would be. So far, I'm not finding that, but of course, I've had very limited experience with the gun so far, and I'm going to continue trying it out and trying out different class loadouts with it and trying to see if I can make this gun perform to the best of its ability. It does come, in fact, with a variant by default when you get it. So you have your default AE4, you have that right away, but you also get a variant when you have this called the Widowmaker, but the Widowmaker is not a good variant, I must say. So what the Widowmaker variant does is it changes the laser to blue, which looks very cool, and it gives you +1 accuracy and -1 to your fire rate, which is not very good. It's a pretty weak sauce upgrade, which I don't even really understand why they were advertising it, because it's kind of weak sauce. It doesn't really make the gun any better or any worse. It really has very minimal effects on the gun aside from your aesthetics. So aside from that, I think that's just about all I really have to say about the weapon. Once again, it's very limited experience with the gun so far. I have about 125 kills with it, along with probably 100 deaths or so, because I was not finding a whole lot of success with the gun earlier on today. So if you think about Advanced Warfare, you think of Call of Duty, it does not take very long to determine whether or not a gun is actually a viable gun or if it's a good gun. If you think about the fact that I have 125 kills and probably 100 deaths with the gun overall, that is roughly 225 total engagements I've had with the weapon, give or take, because there's sometimes I shot someone in the back, there's other times where I got shot in the back and the gun really didn't play any factor in that fight whatsoever, but still roughly 200 engagements I had with the gun, and what I've gauged from those 200 different engagements, which are all separate in their own way, is that the gun does not really seem to perform very well in a lot of different scenarios. So that is my review, I suppose, of the AE4 so far. I am excited to continue using this gun. I'm going to go ahead and continue to use it to see if I can make it viable. If it's not viable, if it becomes one of those weapons that is just really weak, and just compared to all the other assault rifles in the game or compared to the submachine gun stuff, it just seems way too weak, then I'll just stop using it. And I hope that's not the case, because I would hate for Sledgehammer to put out a DLC weapon and for them to have to buff their DLC weapon because they made it too weak on release. That just won't look good from a design standpoint, right? That would just look bad on them. So hopefully that doesn't end up happening. Of course, let me know in the comments if you guys have played around with this gun so far, and let me know your guys' opinion on that. I would definitely be interested to hear about that. And for you PlayStation guys, I'm sorry, there's no word that I've read or I've found anywhere online. There's no word as to when this weapon's actually going to come out on the PlayStation. It's out for Xbox right now, but it's not for PlayStation, and I really don't know when they're going to get ahead and do that. Hopefully they do it soon. Obviously, hopefully they do it soon. So, hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Hopefully you guys all found it helpful and informative, and if you did, please be sure to leave a rating where you guys feel to be deserves. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day.